Hi guys, how's it going? Ivano here, bringing you my long-awaited concealment guide. And this took a while because while I have been playing SWTOR since launch, concealment is one of those classes that I just never really played so much. So this is a guide for beginners because I'm also a beginner at this class myself. So while I'm certainly not the best concealment player in the world, I've played quite a bit of it over the last weeks, and I'm happy to share with you what I learned. As opposed to my previous guides, I will not only focus on PvP, but try to explain also how this class works in general and how you can play it in PvE as well, including the gear and the build and so on. There will also be some concealment gameplay on my channel coming out over the next couple of days, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. And of course, there's also a written version of this guide available over at my Substack. Link to that is in the description below. So to start out a little bit about the class. Concealment is a melee DPS class, and it has some of the best burst damage in the game. On top of that, it is a stealth class, and it has one of the best mobility skills in the game, which also lets you avoid all incoming damage as you roll and for a short period after. This combination makes concealment very hard to kill 1v1 and one of the best classes at playing the warzone objectives. Concealment simply has the annoying habit of forgetting to die sometimes. In PvE, your gameplay will revolve around doing mostly single target damage, so you will focus on taking out high priority adds that need to die quickly, but you can also do great sustained boss DPS because your build will give you an insane critical hit rate. So if you can stick to your target, you can definitely compete for top DPS. On top of that, concealment is relatively easy to learn with a quite straightforward rotation, but can take some time to master because you really need to learn how to use your roll before you take half of your health bar in damage. As of patch 7.5, concealment is currently not considered one of the strongest classes overall. It has lost a lot of its PvP power with the removal of the old set bonuses, looking at the infamous double hard stun for example, and the removal of the Revitalizer's passive in 7.0 Legacy of the Sith. That passive is now lethality only, means that concealment lost most of its reliable source of damage reduction, and now you need to rely on proactively dodging incoming damage with the roll. Also, it's one of those true melee classes that must be in 4 meter range to do any meaningful damage, and this means concealment struggles in fights that involve a lot of kiting and sustained incoming damage from multiple opponents that you cannot always reliably dodge. Taking a look at the key abilities, your biggest crits, at least in PvP, will come from backstab. And as the name suggests, it can only be used from behind the target. Very hard to stab someone in the back if you're in front of them. However, there is the Revealing Weakness passive that lets you use backstab from the front and makes it grant a tactical advantage, which is your secondary resource. This passive is triggered by Volatile Substance, which is the next key ability I want to highlight. It puts a debuff on your target and will explode when you deal poison damage to them. So this delayed damage is the first important part of setting up a big juicy burst combo. You can trigger the explosion in 3 different ways: Corrosive Dart, Backstab, which triggers the Acid Blade passive, or Whale Strike if you are using the Volatile Strike tactical. Volatile Substance also marks the target and causes it to take 7% more internal and elemental damage, which you don't have a lot of, but it provides great synergy with damage over time classes such as PowerTech, who will love you for buffing their damage. Crippling Slice is another key ability. It does not cost any energy, which is great. It roots your target, prevents it from turning, which is unique to concealment. But most importantly, with the build that we are going to run, it turns your next ability into an auto crit. The final key ability that I want to highlight is Exfiltrate, the aforementioned operative roll. While it doesn't roll as far as the sniper's roll, the cooldown is a lot shorter with only 8 seconds. And this will be the key for chasing after targets or avoiding incoming damage and running away, because it makes you dodge or resist all incoming attacks for 1.5 seconds, so it works against melee ranged force and tech damage. And on top of that, this effect will last a little bit longer than the actual roll animation. For your PvP tactical, you want to use Volatile Strike. It buffs your burst by turning Veiled Strike into an auto crit, and if you have volatile substance on the target, it causes it to trigger the explosion. So you will have both attacks hitting at the same time for some nice burst. In addition, it also turns your next backstab into an auto crit. So the perfect setup if you are playing PvP. For Hardball only, you can run Augmented Holocom, which gives your Holo Traverse a second stack. Very OP for scoring the ball and then jumping back to your healers. In PvE, a single burst of damage is not going to be enough to kill a boss, so you want to prioritize your sustained DPS. And the best tactical for that is Acid Lash, which makes Laceration trigger your Acid Blade dot and refreshes its duration. Laceration is of course your main filler ability and tactical advantage spender. And Acid Blade, as we already talked about, is the dot caused by backstabbing a target. While doing damage to multiple targets is probably not the reason you want to play Concealment, I want to mention that the Explosive Cells tactical can be an option if you want to improve your AoE. The best legendary implant is Tactician, which grants you an extra 10% critical hit chance as long as you have a stack of tactical advantage. This just buffs your overall damage and we can almost always have it up, so you always run this implant. Important thing to note, there is another operative tactical called Tactician's Focus, so don't confuse them. Tactician buffs all your damage via the critical rate, whereas Tactician's Focus only gives you an auto crit on a filler ability, which doesn't even do great damage to begin with. So don't waste your tech fragments on Tactician's Focus. For your second legendary, I recommend running Locked and Loaded. The tooltip on that one is wrong. It will give you an extra 5% bonus damage, which is not the same as 5% damage done, but it's still a bit more damage, so it's a good implant. And the final implant that I have been playing with in PvP is Second Wind. This one gives you a 20% HP heal and a 75% movement speed buff for 8 seconds. Using this, you will lose some DPS, but you will get rewarded for kills in PvP, which feels really good. Especially if you play solo without a healer, this can allow you to stay in the fight for longer, and it helps with catching up to your next target. So if you're going to run it, I would recommend replacing Locked and Loaded with this. When it comes to gear for PvP, you can either use the Thursian PvP gear, which goes up to item level 336, or any of the higher item level PvE gear, such as the modded 340 item level gear from Hide and Seek, or even the Rakata 344 gear. They will all give you almost the same stats as soon as you enter a warzone or arena. For your PvP stats, you want to get your alacrity rating to around 2150. That will allow you to get your global cooldown down to 1.4 seconds. To get to that rating, you can use 1 alacrity piece and 3 superior aka golden alacrity augments on top of your legendary implants. If you don't have the gold augments, you can also do what I did here on this character and use 2 alacrity pieces, your 2 alacrity implants and no alacrity augments, which will get you to 2356 alacrity rating. It's a bit more than is needed, but honestly, it will not change your DPS all that much. Since almost all your damage is tech or yellow damage, you do not need accuracy at all for PvP, because here you will never miss yellow damage attack unless your enemies are using some kind of cooldown, but in those cases accuracy usually does not help you much anyway, which is why we don't take any for PvP. So once you have the alacrity settled, you want to get your critical rating to around 4800. For that you need the remaining armor pieces, the earpiece, and 6 critical augments. And then the rest of your augments can go into mastery. For your stim, you want to run the Advanced Curprux Versatile Stim, which further boosts your mastery and power. And the best relics for PvP are the Thursian relics of Serendipitous Assault and Focused Retribution. The main difference when gearing for PvE is that you need 10% accuracy because bosses can avoid your yellow damage. So the number one priority is to reach more than 2694 accuracy rating, which you need to counter the 10% defense chance that bosses have. However, you want to stay as close as possible to this number and don't go much above it. as that would waste stats which you could put into crit otherwise. With the best available gear currently in the game, the Rakata 344 gear, you need 3 armor pieces with accuracy, the Advanced Kerprox Proficient Stim, and 4 gold accuracy augments. For alacrity, the goal will be the same, around 2150 will be fine. And with Rakata gear fully upgraded, that means you only need 1 piece with alacrity, your 2 fully upgraded legendary implants. Keep in mind those only go up to item level 340. And then finally 2 gold alacrity augments. And the rest of your stats should go into crit. For relics, you want to run the Rakata 344 relics of Focused Retribution and Serendipitous Assault. Or if you drop it first, you can also use the Rakata relic of Devastating Vengeance. The difference in DPS is very small. For your Warzone PvP build, I run Roll Knife at level 23. It is a huge boost to your DPS and also reduces the cooldown of your stim boost. So I always take this. At level 27, I like quick countermeasures for the 100% movement speed buff it provides while evasion is active. This one feels really good to use when chasing after sorcerers or mercenaries in a war zone where a lot of random slows or roots are flying at you. It also reduces the cooldown of evasion, meaning you have one of your most important defensives available more often. At level 39, I take Crippling Wounds. This one turns your next attack after Crippling Slice into an auto crit. So while Crippling Throw and the Best Defense, which are the other 2 options at level 39, also have the uses, I prefer to do maximum damage, and Crippling Wounds helps with that. Level 43, here I take Tactical Critical. The buff to the critical chance it provides is nice, but the thing that makes it mandatory in my opinion is the Root Break on Stim Boost. Because Concealment only does meaningful damage if you are within 4 meter range of your target, so you need reliable ways to break movement impairing effects. It also synergizes well with Roll Knife, which we took at level 23, meaning we have our buffed stim boost available more often. At level 51, chem resistant inlays are the best choice if you want to stay in the fight for longer. Advanced cloaking can be better for defending nodes though. At level 64, Mad Shield can add some nice HPS since you have Shield Probe up so often. But I prefer Evasive Screen to make sure I get a clean stealth out without needing to use evasion. Level 68, here you have 2 options. Do you want to be a fucking asshole who gets off on flashbanging people in the face? Or do you want to do top DPS and actually be able to play hardball? In the first case, you go for flashbang. In the second case, you need to run Holo Traverse, which by the way is also a root breaker. Level 73, I like Blow for Blow and Evasive Imperative. The first one makes it so AP power attacks one-shot themselves on you, and the second one makes it so you have your buffed evasion available more often. Tough choice this one, but yeah, it's best to scout out the enemy team before the match and then decide according to the enemy team's composition. For arenas, you'll usually not be the first target, so taking advantage of that, we are making some changes to the build. Level 27, we take Debilitate, because in arena the first kill is super important since it turns the rest of the match into a 3v4. And with the Debilitate, our 4-second hard stun makes that a lot easier because a stunned target cannot defend themselves. So we take Debilitate and try to use it on whoever is our assigned kill target, ideally after they have used their initial CC breaker. Level 64, I already mentioned this, but in case you do need to stealth out, you want to make sure you can safely get away and don't randomly pop out of stealth because of a lingering dot on you. In a war zone, 1 death is not that bad, but in an arena it means you are out of the match and forced to watch your teammates chase around enemies for up to 5 minutes while you inspect the integrity of the arena floor. So instead, I recommend that you take Evasive Screen for arenas, vanish out, heal to full and make them pay. For PvE, you are not going to be using your hard stun that often, so just pick the right option at level 27. The 60% AoE damage reduction is very strong in PvE, even if it just lasts for 4 seconds. Other than that, I would recommend picking up Endorphin Rush at level 64, because in PvE you can run out of energy if you keep spamming those lacerations, which you should. So let's look at the fun stuff, how to do damage in PvP. Now this combo shown here is how you usually want to start a fight. Of course, you cannot always follow this rotation because PvP is dynamic, people kite, they use defensive cooldowns, etc, etc. So you will need to react and change your combo to counter what your opponents are doing. But in general, let's say in an ideal world, you want to start in stealth and use Stim Boost to buff your alacrity and critical damage. Then you start the fight with Volatile Substance. Next, you walk up to your target and use Crippling Slice. Now your target cannot turn around, so you walk up behind them, which means they cannot attack you. Then you use Veiled Strike, which will detonate your Volatile Substance and be an auto crit because of your tactical. Crippling Slice will make it so that your Volatile Substance damage always auto crits as well, so you have a guaranteed double auto crit at this point. Next we have Backstab available, which is also going to be an auto crit because of our tactical. So that's 3 auto crits in a row, but only if you use the abilities in the correct order. They have really nice synergies with each other, but you need to make sure that you don't mess up this combo. Now after this, your target will probably panic and start to kite or use a couple of defensive cooldowns. And here you have to decide whether chasing them is worth it or whether you should use Exfiltrate and switch to another target. In either case, while your burst combo is on cooldown, you should use Veiled Strike to build tactical advantages and Laceration to spend them and also reduce the cooldown of your Stim Boost. If you want to go for the biggest crit possible, use your Crippling Slice auto crit on Backstab instead of Volatile Substance. So the combo then would be first Volatile Substance, then Veiled Strike, Crippling Slice, and then Backstab auto crit of Doom. This way you can hit for upwards of 130k, but Volatile Substance will not be an auto crit. So based on my testing, it's a DPS loss, but can still be fun to do. For your PVE rotation, first of all, remember that you will be using the Acid Lash tactical, so the whole thing above does not apply anymore. But the good news is the PVE rotation is also not all that complicated. To summarize, there are just really 5 rules that you want to keep in mind. First one is use Backstab on cooldown. So whenever Backstab is available, we'll simply push that button. The second one is we want to use the combo of Volatile Substance, then one filler ability, for example Laceration, and then Crippling Slice, and also we want to use this combo on cooldown, so as often as possible. The cooldowns of Volatile Substance and Crippling Slice conveniently line up quite nicely. Third rule, if you have less than 2 tactical advantages, use Veiled Strike. Fourth rule, if Veiled Strike is on cooldown and you have at least 1 tactical advantage, use Laceration. And the final rule, if you are below 70 energy and Adrenaline Probe is on cooldown, so you have no easy way to recover your energy, use Rifle Shot instead. So now we're going to explain the combo in slow motion. So again, you want to start in stealth, so that your Backstab will build a tactical advantage, and you can also pop Stim Boost right away to give you that critical and alacrity buff. Then we do the combo of Volatile Substance, Filler, Crippling Slice. That will refund the tactical advantage because we hit a bleeding target. That's the first part of the rotation. Now we're going to do the whole thing, but we're not going to stop in the middle. So again, starting with Stim Boost from stealth, Backstab, Volatile, Filler, Crippling, Filler, Veiled Strike, Filler, Filler, Backstab is ready, build a tactical advantage, Laceration gets a refund, Laceration, Laceration, and our combo is ready again, build a tactical advantage, Crippling Slice, and Backstab is ready again, and we can keep this combo going almost indefinitely. If you ever run out of tactical advantages, just use Stim Boost or Holo Traverse. And this way you can keep the rotation going almost indefinitely. Sometimes you can also use Corrosive Dart, the damage is not all that bad, but just make sure you don't run out of energy. So if that happens and you should run low on energy, you have Adrenaline Probe of course. Or alternatively, Rifle Shot. Taking a look at the defensive cooldowns, Shield Probe can be used often and doesn't break stealth. It has a very short cooldown, so you can even pop it in stealth before you open on a target in PvP or in a raid. Exfiltrate makes you immune to all damage, as we already discussed. but it cannot be used when you are rooted, electronetted or stunned. So you need to anticipate the incoming damage and interrupt your DPS rotation to dodge an ability with a roll. This is a little bit easier in PvE, where the bosses have much more casted abilities. In PvP, you need to anticipate and skillfully outplay your opponents. This takes a bit of practice and is one of the main skills to master as Concealment. Evasion makes you immune to most white damage attacks for 4 seconds. And that's why it's best to use it if a Carnage Marauder, Marksman Sniper or Deception Assassin is hitting you. On top of that, it also purges all removable negative effects on you and gives you a 60% AoE damage reduction. So Evasion has a lot of good uses and you need to carefully judge, because sometimes it happens that you use it for the root break, but then you eat some massive white damage crit and that's really sad. That being said, the cooldown is not that long, so don't be afraid of wasting it either. Finally, we have Cloaking Screen, which is your Vanish ability. That one puts you into stealth, meaning no one can target you. And this one is usually your last line of defense in PvP because of its long cooldown of 2 minutes. But be aware that certain AoE abilities can still pull you out of stealth, so it's best to combine it with Exfiltrate to immediately create some distance from the place where you were last seen. Next, we look at some gameplay tips. You can use Noxious Knives to detect enemy stealthers that have just vanished. Hololocate does not trigger a global cooldown, so you can combo Hololocate into a Debilitate stun or Hololocate into Laceration should you run out of tactical advantages. And the third tip, if you are chasing a Sorcerer, you can pop their stun bubble from more than 5 meters away to avoid the CC. And to do that, use Volatile Substance from 10 meters, Corrosive Dart, and if you don't get a crit, an extra Overload Shot. Easy classes to face in PvP as Concealment Operative are Advanced Prototype PowerTechs. Against APPTs, you can honestly avoid most of their burst if you simply roll the Thermal Detonator, but be aware that a good PowerTech will root or stun you when using his combo, so it's best to have Evasion and CC Breaker up anyway. A tip on that is to simply wait until they pop their burst on you, hit Evasion and watch them one-shot themselves on your Reflect. Don't forget to giggle, roll away and spam emotes in chat. Vengeance Juggernauts are also relatively easy to fight, at least 1v1. You have the better single target DPS, so just spam your combo on them and then roll away if they pop a defensive. Because once they run out of defensives, they are a free kill. Hard classes to face include Madness Sorcerers, because they can root you more often than you can cleanse it. So you will never be in range 1v1. Your only chance is to kill them from stealth if their health is below 100% or if they are without cooldowns. Try to dodge the overload knockback route and always make sure to save Stim Boost for the root break instead of using it for damage. Any tank will also present quite a big headache to Concealment because you don't have any meaningful AoE or internal damage to pressure them or their teammates through guard, while they can shut down your mobility with a variety of roots, stuns and pulls. Concealment goes well with Deception Assassins. Both classes have a similar playstyle and Deception's CC helps you to keep targets in place long enough to unload your burst damage. Madness Orcs and Pyro PTs are also good pairings for Concealment Operative because they can slow and root enemies for you and also profit from your 7% internal elemental debuff that you provide with Volatile Substance. So that's all for this guide. If you have a question, let me know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, please remember to leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.